All right, shalom. Welcome, everybody. May the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be acceptable in Yahweh's sight. He is our strength and our Redeemer, and it is in His name, which is His authority, that we pray, praise, proclaim, project, and protect today's message. Aman. Welcome to everybody. Thanks for being on with us today. Thank you for spending some time with us. Uh, be blessed to have a nice little setup for these next few days. So excited to be able to come on with you guys and speak about this word for this evening here on Kofi underscore 42. If you don't know about Kofi underscore 43, that's where we do all our rising sessions, 8 a.m. Eastern New York time. Our sunset sessions, our evening sessions are done here at 8 p.m. Eastern New York time on this TikTok channel. We're on YouTube as much as possible. And so once again, we're thankful and grateful to have everybody with us. Thank you for being on with us. We give all praise and honor once again to the Most High. We give all praise and honor to him for my wife, the Honorable Amma, who lives a life that's able to be honored. You can check her out on TikTok, YouTube, her website, and Pinterest at Bloom and Flourish. Not ND, the letter N, Bloom and Flourish. She is a healer, herbalist, chemist, and biologist by degree. To the moderators, to those that are coming on, it's your first time, if it's one time of many, whatever the case might be, we're thankful and grateful to be able to spend some time with you today. And I am missing something. I guess we'll just be without it today. But thank you guys once again for being on. And we appreciate you. Thank you for spending some time with us. Today, I want to talk about being an influencer. Right? An influencer. An influencer, right? Somebody who has influence. They call people today influencers. But it's very interesting when you get into it because people don't want to talk about stuff within culture once again. So since we lack a lot of the stuff that's conversation wise that we need to talk about as far as actual influencer, being an influencer, we have a lot of issues with actually being proper as far as the type of influence that we're giving people, right? So we're not really giving proper influence. We like to talk about being influencers, but we're not really trying to give what we might consider to be actual proper influence or guidance, especially with specific things. Right. What really got me thinking about this was Charlemagne the God, I guess, off of the Breakfast Club, if you guys know who that is. And he was trying his best to make sure that he was he was talking about Beyonce and trying his best to, protect her and let people feel guidance and stuff. And, a lot of church people and what they're trying to call Christian, what they're trying to say now, something Christian nationalist or something like that, whatever. But trying to say that all these people are getting, are coming against Beyonce and how dare they, and they're judging her and things like that. And it had me think of a particular scripture that I've heard a couple of people even mention. So just kind of want to talk about that. I was already going to talk about being an influencer anyways, but this really got me to realize we're in the right space. But once again, welcome everybody. Let me just say hello to you guys by name real quick. How you doing, Big Brother Thomas? How you doing, Tavares, Bounty, Minister Tamara, Aphrodisiac, anybody else who's on? Thank you, Lottie Di, and everybody, whether you're watching this live or watching this later on. We appreciate your presence with us today. So when we're talking about a lot of these different things that are going on and being an influencer, it's always interesting. Everybody wants to talk about being an influencer until we say, well, you influence people. And if you're an influencer, should we hold you accountable for what you put out there, right? Now, the same people who say don't hold somebody accountable, how you doing, Sister Deborah? How you doing, Minister Select Morel? The same people that say don't hold a Beyonce accountable, don't hold somebody else. In other words, don't judge anybody. That's what they're really trying to say. If you hold somebody accountable for something, it means you're judging them, although we judge everybody. Matter of fact, your Bible has a whole book in it called the Book of Judges, where men and women are assigned to judge things. Matter of fact, when you go to the restaurant and they say, how do you want your steak? And you say, I would like it to be well done. And it comes back and it's medium rare. You get to judge it. Why? Because you're supposed to be able to judge things and live by things and have a standard that you are understand things, right? How you doing, Sister Sharice? So we have all these things going on and we're talking about judgment. And we're talking about a lot of different things, and people are saying, "Don't judge this person, don't judge." And what "don't judge" has become don't tell somebody that there's another level. Don't hold somebody accountable. Do not say that I should do something. Don't judge means don't study me. How you doing? 1 point. right? Don't judge. How you doing, Sir Stephen? Don't judge has become don't study me. Do not see if what I say matches up with what I do, right? Have faith in me, but don't look at my works, right? Works do not matter, right? So don't talk about works or any of this other stuff, right? Just have faith in whatever I'm doing. That's what it's become. So don't judge has really become a launching point for mediocrity or even less than mediocrity. And it definitely has become a launching point and a breeding ground for hypocrisy, right? Hypocrites. See, if you were a hypercrite, you would live above the criteria. But a lot of people rather have become hypocrites. See, they're hypo; they live underneath the criteria, and so they tell us not to judge. But once again, if you're an influencer of any kind, if you're supposed to influence things, and guess what? That means that you got to get to influencing, and you got to recognize that whether you like how people what your influence or not, your influence is something that people see. Now, people, here's the deal. We think that influence means that I have to go by what your influence is. Somebody might see your influence and say, hey, I don't want it. Right? Some people might want to say, like, what your influence is, what you're trying to give me as far as influence, I'm not really on that. Right? But it doesn't mean that I'm not going to speak to what's going on as far as the influence. Right? Like, it doesn't mean that. I'm sorry. Hold on 1 second. Sorry about that. I had to make sure if I had to sound up too high on that show, might get a strike against us. So I wanted to make sure we didn't get any strikes. But we are what? We are influencers, right? And so what is your influence, right? And if I see you influencing somebody in a negative fashion, I should probably say something, right? No, you didn't get blocked. I still see your words. If you got blocked, you wouldn't be able to come on at all, right? So we should talk about the influence. We should speak to the influence. How you doing, Dimples? We're not being honest about the fact that we should be what? If we're going to be influencers, somebody should be able to see what we do as far as influence. And somebody should be able to see what we're, should be able to call out if our influence has a positive or negative effect. That's just reality, right? Do you have a positive influence or a negative influence? Is there such a thing as a positive influence and negative influence? Because what a lot of people are trying to say, for example, the latest thing that everybody's trying to do is say, hey, Beyonce made a song, Church Girl or whatever it's called. I listened to it once, so I don't really remember everything to it. It is a little off, to say the least. But now you got Charlemagne the God comes in and says, see, these Christians out here, they don't even want to listen to what their Bible says. They don't even want to listen to what it talks about when it says not to judge and blah, blah, this and that or whatever, right? Because people don't want to be holy or holistic. Oh, I'm in your FYP. Okay, awesome. Well, thank you. Welcome. Thanks for being on, right? So an influencer, there's a negative influence and a positive influence. Now, to say that somebody is doing something that's a negative influence doesn't mean I have a heaven or hell to put them in. It just means, hey, you're doing something that might be causing our community, our children, yourself, your friends, your family, etc., might be causing them some issues, and we might want to deal with that. How you doing, Mo Desire? Right? So we might want to deal with those things. So, for example, when we're talking about this song Church Girl, everybody's losing their mind about, everybody says she should be able to do whatever we want and don't judge. Okay, well, here's Romans chapter. Here's two scriptures back to back, right? Two scriptures. Once again, we talk about this all the time. If you're going to talk about the Bible, actually read it first. Read your Bible. It'll bless you and be holistic. Get the culture down and then come back and have a conversation about it, correct? So watch this. So then it says this. So then every one of us shall give account of himself to Elohim. Every one of us shall do what? What's Romans chapter? Romans chapter 14, verse 12. What does it say? All right, we got to get this together first. What did it say? Every one of us is going to have to do what? Give an account. Be held accountable by who? By Elohim. Every single person. right? Glad that you read your Bible, right? So we're putting the proper culture and the proper context and the kingdom to it, right? To make sure we get this correct. So first and foremost, every single person shall be held accountable. So it's wrong that we hold somebody accountable. If every single person must be held accountable, you got to see like something's not making sense. Somebody's saying, don't hold me accountable. They're trying to say, don't judge. But they're saying what? Don't hold me accountable. What's the next verse say right after that? Let us not therefore judge one another anymore, but judge this rather, that no man put a stumbling block or an occasion to fall in his brother's way. Y'all catch it? So in other words, Romans chapter 14, verse 12 says what? It says, hey, all of us are going to have to be held accountable by the Most High. Romans chapter 14, verse 13 comes behind it and says, hey, make it a point that you don't be a stumbling block and put a stumbling block in your brother's way. You see that? So somebody says, well, they're influencers. Influencers can do whatever. Yeah, you know what? Everybody has free will. You can do whatever you want. Just recognize, though, if you have a negative influence, I should be able to say that's influencing us in an improper manner. You said judge also means to inflict punishment. We are sharing what Yahweh says is righteousness. Sure. Exactly, right? Right. So we got to recognize if this stuff is going to be judged, right? See, when it says judge, lest not you be judged, you think that means that you can't judge anything as right or wrong. But that's not the reality. The reality is what? The reality is that you can't do right or wrong. The reality that we're talking about is this. The reality is what? The reality is that we're not judging your salvation. Yet Matthew spoke on the whole Bible speaks of it, right? But we want to be specific in this context, right? That people are out here telling us what to not judge, right? Because look, judge lest not you be judged, forgive and you shall be forgiven, condemn and you shall be condemned. Give and it shall be given unto you. That's Luke 6:37-38. Give and it shall be given unto thee. Elachem's measure, pressed down, shaken together, and running over, shall men give unto your bosom. For with the same measure that you meet, shall it be given unto thee. So it doesn't say that you can't judge. It says, hey, be careful. When you judge, that's how you're going to be judged. So if you're going to judge things a certain way, then you got to live by how you judge. It doesn't say you can't judge. It just says don't judge something and you're not going to live it. Don't condemn somebody and you're not going to make sure that people can't come and condemn you for the same thing. If you can't forgive people, then expect not to be forgiven. That's why you give, and it shall be given unto thee. How you doing, Miss Man? So why is holding ourselves accountable to judgment? We should be thankful for the correction. Right, exactly. And that's the truth. And that's how we have to have this mindset. That's the thought process we have to have, right? It's like, it doesn't say you cannot judge. It doesn't say you cannot condemn. It says that you are not under condemnation. Condemnation means what? Right? Condemnation means that you are condemnation. You're in a place of condemnation, or your condemnation is a thing you hold on to. But since we follow after the spirit and not after the flesh, you are not under condemnation, right? You are not condemned. Let's read it like this. Let's read Romans chapter 8, verse 1. Let's make sure we get this correct. Right? Romans chapter 8 and verse 1. It says what? It says, there is therefore no condemnation. Doesn't mean that something or someone cannot be condemned, or something in you might not need to be condemned. But guess what? If somebody's going to condemn you, make sure that that person lives by what they say. Because if they'll condemn you for something, because they say they follow after the spirit, but then in their condemnation, right, and them being a person that's condemning you, the person that's condemning you, condemnation, and them saying, I'm going to give you condemnation because you're not following after the spirit. Watch that person carefully. See if they follow after the spirit. If they don't follow after the spirit, they do not have the ability or the right or even the righteousness to be able to condemn you. And if they are going to condemn you, then guess what you have to turn around and do? You have to say, okay, well, guess what? That I get to condemn you too. And people don't like that. How you doing? My wife is on the Honorable Alma. Thanks for being on, babe. You can check her out on TikTok, YouTube, or website, and Pinterest at Bloom and Flourish. Not A&D, the letter N, Bloom and Flourish. She's a healer, herbalist, chemist, and biologist by degree. And we're thankful for her presence one more again, as we always are. Thankful to have her on here with us, right? So we got to say to ourselves, we got to think to ourselves, right? What is it what is it that's causing us to believe that we can never judge anybody? We can never say something should be condemned, and we think that something should never be what? We think that something should never be, uh, uh, or we should never forgive. It is something that's showing that something's off, right? Romans chapter 14, verse 12, once again, it's saying you are going to be held accountable by the Most High. So don't be frustrated about being held accountable, right? But verse 13 says, don't be a stumbling block. If you keep doing things that cause somebody to stumble, then you got to figure it out. Like there's some things where I'm going to get some help, or like I'm going to invest some finances in a couple of weeks, bare minimum, right? To make sure that I start talking to somebody, because I need to be able to make sure that my investment in myself, my family, friends, and even SOC and others that we're talking to, right? I got to make sure that I'm not a stumbling block, because I feel like I'm doing something, but I feel like I'm not adequate in that area, right? So you got to do what? Not be a stumbling block. You got to do what? Not be a stumbling block. You got to do what? Not be a stumbling block. It's not only about, making sure that you make people feel nice. Don't be a stumbling block. Don't put something in somebody's way. So going back to the Beyonce song, how many people who are trying to follow the will of Yah, how many young girls who are trying to follow the will of Yah are hearing her talk about being a church girl and basically getting trim and basically bouncing on somebody's phallus and doing stuff like that? Like how many girls are going to hear that song, and because they look up to Bae, this going to become a stumbling block? Right? We're not judging Beyonce's salvation. She has to work out her own salvation with fear and trembling. Exactly, right? We're not trying to feed demons. So if she's feeding the demons, some of our youth, and she's becoming a stumbling block to their salvation that's going to be worked out, then what do we have to do? We have to say, hey, we got to call it out. Now, people are mad at pastors for coming together and calling it out. Now, once again, when these pastors call it out, that you got to go back to Romans. And you got to say to yourself, all right, hold up. If y'all are doing this, then guess what? If y'all going to call her out, we better not find out that you out here, being this like the pastor was that got caught, eating out some woman on video. You better not be like the cussing pastor. You better not be like not Dr. John Gray, who's not even a Christian, let alone a follower of the way, but Pastor John Gray, who was out here, got caught up cheating on his wife. You better not be like what's his face, Derek Jackson, right? Like you're gonna have to be, if you're gonna call out Beyonce, okay, cool. You better not be doing what she's doing. Yes, sir. You all right? You want to come here? What's up? What's up? You all right?
Yeah. I was just about to tell you that we're about to eat.
Okay, I'm almost finished. Thank you. All right, I'll be there in a second. So yeah. So we have these things that are going on, and we're not aware that we're not aware of what's happening as far as being, that we're being judged, or I'm sorry, that we can judge rather. All right, I'm Daniel Boo. Have a great day. Thanks for being on. Right, and if you ever want to come back, we're on 8 a.m. Eastern New York time every day, 8 p.m. Eastern New York time every weekday, except for Wednesdays. Wednesdays is my day off. And how you doing, brother TJ? So we have to realize these things, right? It's okay to call out the fact that, hey, we need to hold somebody accountable. That is a stumbling block. It has no reason. See, and some people don't want to go there. Now, I'm not saying we shouldn't season our words with salt. I'm not saying that we shouldn't think things through. We should. We definitely should. We definitely should. We definitely should. Right. But that's why even on some of the live sessions, people get frustrated and stuff. And how come this person doing this? And how come I got muted? And how come you won't let me say this? It's about a culture. It's about an environment. And there are certain things we can't allow, especially when it comes to this being a safe space. Everybody thinks that when we say a safe space, it means we have to automatically make sure that every single person, that every single thing that every single person says. That's not what a safe space is, right? Right. See, because what's safe to one culture is not safe to another. So we make it a point to pick people and choose people that we know are going to make sure that they are giving people enough chance to be able to, be respectful. How you doing, Minister Select Joseph? Simultaneously, let us not forget that even though we have to do those things for others, right? Let us not forget that, guess what? We have the right to be able to say that's a stumbling block. So if you come on here and your attitude is, I'm going to use ad hominem to make fun of every single person that I come across, well, we have a problem. We have a problem. And we have to deal with it. Why? Because now you're becoming a stumbling block. See, before it was just something that's just not right. But when you come on, if your whole thing is to try and take over, hey, listen to me, answer my thing, answer my thing, answer my thing, answer, and you start making fun of the people who are saying things that are bad, or talking bad about belief system, or talking bad about whatever. Like, I can care less how much you make fun of me or whatever, but if your whole thing is to make fun of me, you're distracting at that point. Are you a stumbling block at that point or not? Do we need to say, all right, take a break? There you go, get muted. You get muted for 5 seconds, come back on, and you're going to be even more of a stumbling block. Muted for 30 seconds, come back on, eventually muted for 5 minutes. Eventually, hey, you got to get muted for the whole program. You come back on the next day, do the same thing. Guess what? Eventually, you got to get blocked. And people get upset about it, frustrated about it, but you're frustrated about the wrong thing, right? Because we're saying that person's a stumbling block at that point. You see, there's a 5 second. Yeah, there's a 5 second. I believe there's a 5 second, 30 second, 1 minute, 5 minute, and a complete live block, or a complete live mute, and then a complete block to never be able to come back on. I believe those are the levels, right? Yeah, some people say that they can only do it 5 minutes. They're not even allowed to do anything more than just 5 minutes. I don't know what's up with that. I think that's a TikTok problem, because like certain things you guys see on yours, I can't see on mine sometimes. You said, well, the people weren't reporting the lines constantly would be easier. Well, that's part of it too, but I'm saying we have to call it out. Why? Because it's a stumbling block. Like, and some people are trying to be stumbling blocks, and I don't want to just focus on the live, so I'm going to kind of scoot away from the live, if y'all don't mind, because I don't want to make it about just, hey, they're blocking me. What I'm trying to get across is there are some people that seek to be stumbling blocks, like on those live situations. Like, what I'm saying is there are people who come on there specifically, they have to take over, and if you don't let them, then they lie. Why? Because they want to be a stumbling block. They know that if I can tell a certain lie, they can't be on for several days. If they can't be on for several days, then that's a stumbling block. Literally, they block this, and they causing people. Now, does that cause people to stumble if they're coming for the word? If they've been coming 3, 4, or 5 days in a row, maybe they came for the first day, maybe they came for a second day. They don't have a clue about Kofi_42. They don't know what we're doing in the community, this and that, and they're trying to get better. But guess what? Now we disappear for 4 days. Maybe they find us again. Maybe they never do, right? Somebody's becoming a stumbling block, and somebody's trying to do that in your regular life, right? Going away from the live, like I said before, somebody's trying to do that in your everyday routine. You said you've had people in your life seeking to be a stumbling block by their admission. Yeah, like a lot of people, we do this weird thing where it's like, oh, it's just a random thing. They didn't mean to be a stumbling block. Some people don't, but a lot of people, they're on purpose going to be a stumbling block. Because once again, when you represent what you represent, when you represent the kingdom, this is a different mindset. This is a different belief system. This is a different thought process than what you've been doing before and how you've been living. Isn't that the same old, right? So since this is something different, since this is a different mindset, since this is a different reality, since this is a different way of thought, we have to recognize the stumbling block. Once again, Romans 14:12. Hey, when you you're going to be held accountable by the Most High, whether you like what I'm saying or not. At some point, you got to stand up and talk to Him, right? Then after that, secondly, not only do you have to stand up and be accountable to the Most High, but let's be honest about this too. At some point, not only going to be accountable to the Most High, but we're supposed to make sure that we don't allow people to be a stumbling block. The Most High doesn't want you to be a stumbling block, right? If you cause the least of these little children, Yahshua said, to stumble, the least of them to stumble, right? You be a stumbling block to the least of these children. It's better that the millstone be tied off your neck and you be thrown out. We have so many children in the spirit, and they keep running after stumbling block after stumbling block. Hey, you don't really have to do this. You don't really have to do this. You don't really have to worry about the law. But what if God was really water? What if God was really air? What if God was really energy? What if God doesn't exist? What if you are God? Like all these different things that happen, and stumbling block after stumbling block after stumbling block, people fall and fall and fall. And it becomes this thing where now, hey, really we shouldn't worry about absolutes. There's no absolute truth. They absolutely told you that there's no absolute truth. We're in a very weird place because people don't want to be held accountable for what they say. A lot of people get frustrated when we talk about the things we talk about, like when we go back into science versus evolution tomorrow. The reason why a lot of people get tired and get mad, you know what? Because a lot of them have never been told that I don't have to listen to your culture, and your culture does not have to be the end all be all, and I will hold you accountable, right? Because I learned out of your culture. I know how to think like you think. I had to come out of that system. I had to come out of that truth. I had to come, or that false sense of truth, right? I had to come out of your false sense of reality. I had to come out of your ideology and come into an idea. I had to leave idealists alone so that I could have proper hypothesis with ideas to be able to get proper conclusions based off of proper control, consistency, and giving conclusions based upon statistical data that is contextually factual and has nothing to do with how how you want to go ahead and put something together to prove a conclusion rather than coming up with a conclusion because you're trying to prove a hypothesis, right? But it comes through holding people accountable. People don't like it when you say, hey, not only are you a stumbling block to others, you're a stumbling block to yourself. Because you're talking about that you're not racist, yet you like Charles Darwin. Charles Darwin is Linnaean. Carl Linnaeus is somebody who basically started off what became eugenics. And who finished it off? The person who finished it off was Charles Darwin's cousin. Right. That's why I mention that a lot. I always have that ace in the hole. Why? Because you're going to have somebody that's going to start talking about evolution. And then I'm going to first ask them, which evolution are you talking about? They don't want to have that conversation because they don't even know what that means. That there's more than just one type of evolution, but fine. Then we talk about your fifth type of evolution. That's usually what everybody wants to talk about. And meanwhile, you don't know what you're talking about. So you're a stumbling block to yourself. You don't even know that Hitler used evolution and cited it for what he did to be able to do to people. You don't know that Stalin cited it for what he did to people. You don't know that Idi Amin, right? Because you always want to bring up black people, but you don't know which ones to bring up, so I help him out. Idi Amin, he cited that because he said that he liked what Hitler did, but he wanted to flip it to use it to be able to kill off the tribes that he didn't like. What about Papa Doc, who said once he learned about evolution, it helped him to be able to get over things because he didn't have to worry about being judged. These things are tied to a culture. And these are influence. This is influential. I'll say this last thing, and then, as you guys probably heard, my son come in and let me know it's time for us to eat. So we're going to go break bread or break fruit. I think we're breaking tonight, but break bread. Right. However, last thing on the list, and then we'll go ahead and take our leave for today. And we'll see you guys tomorrow, 8 a.m. Eastern New York time on Kofi_43. Last thing on here is that when it comes to being an influencer, this is something that happened to me while I was working in a restaurant. Basically, I was somebody who jobbed out hard, toiled, could toil better than any of them, was faster than everybody, would live more than anybody, was more consistent, made sure I could speak in a couple of different languages to be able to get the order across. You could put me on any place in the restaurant. I could serve people. I could cook the stuff. I could talk to people. I could direct people. I was basically a manager, but they wouldn't pay me to be in management because in order to be in management, I had to work certain job out certain hours that I wasn't willing to job out to, right? And long story short, I finally decided that I was done having jobs. I was going to step out on faith. I wasn't going to do the 9-to-5 thing anymore. How you doing, TJ? Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom to everybody, by the way. Sorry about that. And I was like, I'm done with this. I'm just going to go ahead. I'm going to walk in faith, right? And that was my last time having a job like a 9-to-5. If anything else, I had contracts that if I felt like doing something, I would do it, or sometimes even might do a side hustle or something like that. But on my way out, I had a conversation with somebody who was asking me what was going on because she saw I was kind of down, and she knew I was going to basically be leaving or whatever. She was a management. So I told her, and I basically said, that I wasn't even talking about that particular job. I was just saying, hey, I'm growing, got land, got a great wife, got a great child, not really for me, whatever. And I think I'm just realizing, as much as I like the people here, it's not worth it, because if you work a job long enough, or if you're trying to come out of anything, you're trying to grow your business, whatever, when you're around certain people are going to actually try to tell you not to leave, not because they don't want to see you do better, but because they don't want to see you go through the risks. What if you don't make it? What if your business is in the red for a long time? What if your family struggles? This and that, right? So they start doing things that kind of hold you back. Right. So I knew I had to separate myself from a lot of people who liked learning from me, and I was giving stuff to, and I was even teaching in that situation and stuff. Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm finishing up. So I was learning from in that situation, doing all these things or whatever. And now basically, where was I? Sorry. Oh, and basically now I'm realizing like it's time for me to go or whatever. And I said out loud, right, and it was misrepresented. I said out loud, it's not worth it. And so the person heard me, somebody who works above, who's always nosy, doesn't really help anything out or whatever, but then's always nosy when it's come time to do stuff. You always got somebody up in management doing that. They hear me say that, so they come to me and be like, oh, did you say it's not worth? Don't say that, and blah blah, this and that. So I'm like, okay, cool. I explained to them what I meant. That's not what I meant, whatever. I kind of feel bad about it, right? Because they're making me feel like I'm saying all these different things. Okay, thank you, babe. I apologize. Thank you for waiting for me during the live or around the time of the live. Sorry about that. Thanks. I'm coming. So I'm trying to finish up. Where we at? Sorry. So anyway, so this girl it comes out that the person who owns the restaurant itself then comes to me the next day, and it's like, did you say that it's not worth it and this, that, whatever? So I have to then explain again. I told the person that told on me, this is what I said, blah, blah, this and that, or whatever, right? But, I already basically given my 2 weeks notice. I'm done. I'm getting ready to go out the door. I got like a week left. And then I hear her say something that she never said before. She says, oh, I'm glad to hear that you didn't say that, or that's not what you meant, because you're an influencer. And, you can influence people. And I didn't feel great when she said that. You know why? Because in all my time toiling there, nobody had ever once said you're an influencer. And it showed me that in all that stuff that they're talking about, they love to hold you accountable for stuff, and they love it when you toil out, right? But when you call out something that could be a stumbling block, not just for you, for their people, right? They have these young people who are going to toil and think that you're just supposed to toil and toil and toil. And when I told them that, hey, coming outside of this system of having to do the 9 to 5 thing is not valuable, I wasn't even trying to say that, but I was speaking to somebody else. But because others could have heard it and been like, maybe this isn't valuable, they said, ooh, we don't like you being, we're going to say you're an influencer. We need you to be positive. But you never thought I was an influencer the whole time, right? So I need you to comprehend the whole time, whether you're an enemy of the kingdom or not, you've always been an influencer, right? You've always been an influencer. A lot of people don't want you to be an influencer when it comes to the kingdom, but you're always an influencer. Be willing to call out stumbling blocks with your life, with your words, and with your actions. That being said, time for me to break bread. I apologize to anybody who's just coming on, but hopefully you're in. But hey, we usually only go to about, well, I don't know. I've been stretching it. But I guess get used to it. We're at to start classes soon. So we'll be finishing about 8:30 again at our regular time. So thank you, everybody, for being on. We appreciate you. We honor the King and Queen in each and every one of you. Thanks so much for being on. We hope that you're doing well. Those in South Florida, we put information out about where we're going to be meeting up and everything. So we hope to see you guys there. I'll be trying to check my DMs to see if we get information from you, and we'll make sure that we catch you up if we did get information. So thank you again. We appreciate you. We honor you. And we look forward to talking to you guys tomorrow, 8 a.m. Eastern New York time on Kofi_43. Until then, thank you so much for being on. As always, it's been Pastor Kofi, Pastor Servant to Christ, where we are always changing lives one mind at a time by being a voice of the voiceless and speaking the unspoken. Until I have the great privilege, opportunity, and responsibility of being in front of you all again. Please remember, as always, y'all still, that you are loved, you're necessary, you're majestic, you're fearfully, wonderfully made, and you, which is all of us working together, will be the reason why people who are in this system no longer have to be of it. Shalom, family. Peace.